Now, for some people who know me, I'm on the BBC, and we work very hard on the BBC to raise awareness of some of the issues that, the Sharan Project are very much passionate about. And as a result, we went to the first ever event, did we not, at the Sharan Project, did we not, Polly? For a long time, I thought her name was Sharon, and so I apologize for keep calling you that. She never corrected me in a whole time. But my wife's name is Shay, so that's why you might feel that this guy is sitting on stage and he doesn't feel whole, because I'm not completed by the women. If my wife was here, she would do all the groundwork. I've been handed this when I walked in. I'm a dyslexic, so I might as well look at this side of it. It's the same. But I do know a lot about what's going on because I'm just as passionate as everyone else in this room, the volunteers. So without any further ado, let's get on to the main event of this evening, is because everyone wants to find a truth. And not many people find the truth because we can't quiet our minds. There's this young Jewish lad who went out on a journey to see the world, but he discovered himself. And today he's a Swami, and he goes by the name of Radhanath Swami. And please give a big round of applause for Radhanath Swami ji, please. Can you please come up on the stage? Thank you. It's all for you, sir. Thank you very much. Now, it's an honor for me to sit on the same stage. You've seen his speeches online. You can see it on YouTube anytime you like. But we get this rare occasion where we get his presence and we can ask him questions, and I will give the option to ask questions at the end, depending on how fast the answers come. We can't rush these things. But I have got something that I want to ask him, and I want to talk to him. This is the man who speaks to world leaders right there, Obama, and go to colleges like the University of Oxford and also Cambridge, by many other places he goes to, and corporate events as well. But this is the first time he's come to a charity event. And I want to ask you, Swamiji, why the Sharan Project? Why have you took some time out to spend time here with us today?
Thank you. Recently, I had the very special opportunity to meet Polly and Preeti. And they spoke to me about Sharan. And I saw their genuine concern to protect and give shelter to women who are suffering. When they invited me this evening, I considered it a great honor to be here.
I think, thank you very much for a start, for coming down. And it is amazing that, that you are here. And, we've got flowers that smell amazing. So I've got another question for you. We are talking about love and compassion. But then how can you talk to women who are in a situation where love and compassion are the last thing, when they're coming up against honor violence and honor killings and, forced marriages? How do we show love and compassion to a woman or a child even who's gone through something like that?
It begins by feeling love and compassion. If we do not really feel, if we don't really care, then it's not a very sustainable effort to actually show them love and compassion. But how we show it, in whatever way possible, according to time, place, and circumstance, to create and empower organizations like Sharan, in whatever way we can, to actually give them such shelter, to give them hope. Can I tell a story?
I would love to hear your stories. That's why I'm sitting right beside you, so I don't miss a word.
It may take a few minutes.
It's all right. We've got an hour, right? Can we just pay some extra time, if you don't mind? Yeah, everyone's here voluntarily. It's okay.
In 2012, there was a International Women's Conference in Mumbai. And considering how that year there was atrocious rape cases to innocent women and large demonstrations against, it was a very important event. The keynote speaker was a 63-year-old lady from Maharashtra. Her name was Sindhutai Samkal. Have any of you heard of her? She came to the stage. There was about 500 people in the auditorium. Many corporate heads, professors, politicians. What she spoke put every single person in tears. She told the story of her life. I would like to briefly tell it because it's a story of abuse and hope. She told she was from a very poor little village in the state of Maharashtra of India. When she was 6 years old, she really wanted to go to school. But her family, they forced her to take care of the water buffaloes instead. So 6-year-old little girl with a little stick with these gigantic water buffaloes going into the fields. And at a certain time of the day, because it was hot, they would go in the water up to their necks and they liked to stay there, so she would run to school. Really enthusiastic to learn. But because she was almost every day late, the teacher would beat her with a stick. And then when she would run back to get the buffaloes, sometimes they would be on somebody else's property, and the farmer would beat her with a stick. She said these were the best years of her childhood. When she was 10 years old, she was forced to marry a 30-year-old man. When she was 19, she had 3 sons, and she was pregnant. At that time in their little village, there was like a mafia, and the leader was exploiting the people, especially the women, making them work like slaves, practically giving them nothing. She had courage, something no one else had. She reported it to the police, the collector. Mm-hmm. And that mafia head, he was so angry, so vengeful. He went to Sindhutai's husband and said, "You're a lie." The lie was, your wife is having affairs with so many other men. In fact, she's regularly having an affair with me, and the child in her womb is not yours, it's mine. And if you don't do something about her, I'm going to do something to you. Outraged, the husband decided to kill her. He kicked her in the abdomen again and again and again until she fell to the ground unconscious. Leaving her as dead, he dragged her to a cowshed so that people would think that the cows trampled on her. It was a very overcrowded little cowshed. And she was laying there unconscious. And when she came to consciousness, she saw a cow was standing over her. And with her horns, she was protecting Sindhutai from any other animal or human or anyone to hurt her. For hours, that cow was standing over her. And when she finally came to consciousness and she saw that, her heart melted. She gave birth to a baby girl under the cow. And she had to take a rock and cut her own umbilical cord with it. She was there for many more hours until she could finally stand up, and she embraced that cow and cried, thanked the cow for helping her when she was helpless. And she made a promise to that cow that I will also help the helpless. She went back to her biological home, but due to the village tradition, they rejected her. They considered it a disgrace for her to come back and live with them. So she had an infant little baby. She had nothing, no one, and she was really afraid of being abused. So she slept at night at a crematorium, just the bank of a river where in the open air they would burn bodies. And she would collect some wheat flour somehow or other and mix it with the river water. And she explained at this event that she would cook chapatis on the fire of the burning corpse. She stayed there because she felt that people would think she's haunted and they would leave her alone. This went on for some months, and it was so depressing. She finally decided that she was going to commit suicide, along with her child. So she went to a railway track and laid down with her little baby, waiting for the train to come. But she heard on the railway platform someone was groaning in agony. So she went and found an old dying man who was starving for water and food. And she went out and begged and brought him some. She spoke and explained how she heard the voice of God through that man, that she has a meaningful purpose in her life. As she promised the cow, she was going to help people. But then she took a little baby and was sitting in a field under a tree, wondering, I'm so broken. How can I help anybody? She looked up, and there was a branch from the tree that a woodsman had butchered with an axe, and it was just hanging by a single shred, but it was giving her and her baby shade. And she was thinking, yes, no matter how much I have been hurt, I can still do something with my life. And then she decided she would be the mother for orphan children. And in India, there's no shortage. She would go to railway platforms and other places and find little children of different ages who were homeless, who were rejected, who ran away from home for the same reasons that we have been discussing this evening. And she became their mother and just traveled around, and it got bigger and bigger. And gradually some charitable people saw what she was doing and gave her a little house. And as time went on, she got more houses. And over the years, she has been the mother to over 1,500 children who were completely hopeless and helpless without her. And she gave them what she never had the opportunity to receive. She gave them education. She gave them love and care and protection. And almost all her children now are doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers, farmers. In fact, 2 of her original sons, when they saw what she was doing, they left their father's house to live with her. And they both have PhDs. One did his doctorate on his mother's life. She's been given over 270 awards. She's known as the mother of the orphans. She's been invited to 15 countries. And as she was telling this story, she became really emotional and said, I want to share with you the most meaningful thing I've done in my life. She said decades after she was beaten, abused, and abandoned, a man of about 80 years old came to her orphanage, who was hungry and homeless and sick. And as she was talking to him, she recognized this was her ex-husband who tried to kill her. He asked forgiveness. She forgave him. She said, I'm no longer your wife, but I'll be your mother. And she gave him a place in the orphanage. She told all the other children, give him your love because he needs it the most. She said that when people come to the orphanage to visit, when she introduces him, she said, this is my eldest son, and sometimes a very naughty one indeed. Her ability to forgive him and give him shelter. She said when he came, she told him, when you abandoned me, I had no food, I had no clothing, I was helpless. And now I have this beautiful home, 1,000 children, almost 2,000 grandchildren, and you have no clothes, are homeless, and are abandoned. She told the audience that we should always stand up and fight for our rights and fight for what's right, whatever has happened. And most of all, we have to genuinely care for those people who are suffering and abused. And she ended her talk by saying, my path was filled with sharp thorns, but I made friends with those thorns, and my life became beautiful. About a year after I heard this story, I met Sindhutai in Pune, a city in Maharashtra. And we were supposed to both speak together to about 6,000 people at this assembly. But beforehand, we met at somebody's house, and we spoke for about an hour and shared our realizations, and it was a beautiful meeting. And she was with a few of her grown-up orphans that were with her. One boy was the first child that she met when she began her mission. As we got up to go, she gestured to a young lady who was sitting next to her, very quiet, but beaming with a smile the whole time we were together. And she said, This is one of my daughters. She is now a medical doctor. She runs one of my orphanages now. She's the one that was born under that cow. I'm telling this story because we should feel for her. We should feel for the people that she's directly, personally trying to give shelter to salvage her life. She's one small lady who's doing what she can. And all of us, we should all do what we can. And what to say to such ladies who are in that suffering condition, we should say, we should do everything within our power to give them shelter, to give them hope.
Lady Levy earlier on in her speech mentioned that we're living in a time where we are terrified. We live in Europe, we feel a bit protected, but there's attacks in Paris coming closer to home and we're getting all worried. But these attacks have been happening for a long time across the world, where some countries don't have the privilege or they have the right governments and a lot of corruption that goes on. But what we do find is that it's divisions that cause these barriers and makes it easier for these opportunists to come in there and disrupt a country or a people. Swamiji, when do you think that we will start treating each other like human beings and not with the labels that are put upon us from the country that we're from or the family that we're born into, or if we're a male or if we're a female? When will do you think that we can get to a place where I can just see you as a human being and the light that you are, as opposed to whose father you are, whose son you are? Or how do we move forward like that? How can we achieve that oneness?
From my perspective, what we're facing is a spiritual crisis. And that spiritual crisis has its root when we are so distracted by our egos and our fears and our greed and our passions, our selfishness, that we become disconnected from our own self. Emerson said like that. He said, there's so much conflict, so much trouble, the whole world is in heaps of problem. And the reason is human beings are disconnected from their own true selves. We live in a global society today. In such a global society, we really require to understand universal truths that are at the very essence of all the great faiths of the world. In the Bible, the first and great commandment, it's not to be a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or a Hindu or a Sikh or a Jain or a Parsi or a whatever, Buddhist. The great commandment is to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. But what is the symptom of one who actually and sincerely is trying to love God? You love your neighbor as yourself. And everyone is our neighbor. The environment is our neighbor. We have no right to exploit it. And every living being is our neighbor. The Bhagavad-Gita echoes that same truth. Vidyavanaya sampane brahmani gabhihastini suni chaiva swapake cha pandita samadarshana. This is Sanskrit. That real enlightenment, real spiritual connection means not what we call ourselves, not how many verses we have memorized, not how many people we can convert. Real spiritual connection means we see every living being with equal vision. The Bible says, "What profiteth a man who gains the whole world but loses his eternal soul?" Na jayate mriyate va kadachat. When we actually understand our own soul, our own Atma, that living force that's within us, who I really am, and what is our relationship with our Creator, then we naturally see every living being as our brothers, our sisters, our neighbors. We naturally love our neighbor as ourselves. If you water the root of the tree, that water will extend to every leaf, branch, and twig of the tree. If we actually love God, if we're actually in connection to our own true self, then that love will extend to all, because we understand and appreciate the sacredness of life. This verse from the Bhagavad-Gita tells equal vision, whether one is white or black or brown or yellow, whether one is male or female, rich or poor, whether one is a Hindu or a Muslim or a Jain or a Jew or a Buddhist or a Christian, or whether one is an agnostic or an atheist, from the east to the west, whether one is a human or a dog or a cat or an elephant or a cow, to appreciate that life is sacred. And wherever there's life, there's a pursuit of pleasure. To honor and recognize that pursuit of pleasure of others. To appreciate, to respect, is true dharma, it's true religion, it's true humanity. And that is at the core of the problem of the world today. We're so divided. But there's one simple analogy, I'll finish with this. Our body. There are many different organs and limbs within our body. Each one has its own shape, its own color, and its own function. The kidneys cannot do what the knees do. The brain cannot do what the pancreas does. The lungs cannot do what the eyes do. But does any part of the body feel I'm more important than all the other parts? Different functions, different shapes, different sizes, different textures. But a healthy body is when they all respect and appreciate and understand that their unity in their diversity is what gives health to each part and to the whole. And in the body of human society today, it's necessary. We educate our children, we educate the world with these principles. That real success, real progress is not just how much we acquire. It's our values. How we value others. How we respect others. And how we appreciate our differences.
Thank you very much. Swamiji, you make a really good point that, some people have the luxury of finding their true selves. And men normally have that privilege, go out, feel the world, go and see what you're doing. Sometimes the ladies, most of the time in certain communities, ladies can't go and find that true one who they are, the truth that lies within them, because of the pressures that are put upon them by the families. They already have certain roles that they have to fulfill for their dads, for their sons, for their brothers, for the males within those certain communities. How do we talk to the girls and the women and the generations and the families when we try to find equality for these women who are emotionally blackmailed and also put so much guilt and forced into marriages that they don't want to go into, or live a life that they don't want to pursue, when they're trying to just be who they want to be and trying to discover who they are? First they have to fight to find, a path, and then on this path they have to find this truth that you're talking about. How do we educate these families and these generations? I mean, you've been part of India for a long time, in little rural parts of India that you've talked to us about. How do we give hope to these people and these families and these individual young people who don't even know who they are yet, and probably won't if they don't get the chance to discover the truth within us?
It is a great challenge. The state of the world today. Tradition is meant to uphold that which is sacred. But unfortunately, when things go corrupt, then tradition preserves that corruption. And this is what we're facing. As far as possible, to educate families how to actually show true compassion to their daughters, to their daughter-in-laws, how to adjust, to inspire, empower, and give value to these girls or ladies. Education is of a core importance. At the same time, sometimes that's out of our reach. And we should try to inspire laws and policies of our local and governments and national governments to actually, step forward. And where there is such abuse, and where we can't really make a difference in the lives of those people, then we should hear the call and the cries, and we should give the God-given rights to these women to have a quality life, to have the freedom that they require. And for that, to support, to empower, and to participate in organizations like Sharan is a very, very great and noble contribution. What people have to understand is there's laws of nature. In the Bible it is said, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. Scientifically it is said, for every action there's an equal corresponding reaction. In India we call it the law of karma. When we cause emotional or physical suffering to another, that suffering is going to come back upon us in multiple times. And people have to know that. And these laws of karma are especially relevant to our own family members. Sometimes we think I'm responsible to what I do outside of my house. Mm-hmm. But in God's eyes, it's not that anyone is my wife or my daughter or my husband. These are God's children. And we are caretakers. Wherever we have responsibilities for other human beings, we are caretakers of God's beloved children. And God loves all his children. And that's our spirituality, that's our morality, that's our ethics, that's our humanness. We're caretakers for the planet. We have to respect Mother Earth. She's a mother that's really exploited these days. And everybody's affected. And so many people are suffering. Our daughter-in-laws, our daughters, are God's beloved children. In the Bible, Jesus says that as we do to the least among our brothers or sisters is what we do to God. People have to know this because they're not even aware. They just think it's their right to do anything they want, say whatever they want at the expense of another. People are responsible and they must pay the price. That awareness is very important. And where we cannot make that difference of people taking that responsibility as a caretaker. Caretaker means to take care for a person's emotional, physical, and spiritual health and happiness. That's the duty of human society. And wherever that's not there, according to our capacity, we must intervene and give shelter.
I think it's only fair that, Swami, if you don't mind, I'm going to open the forum up to these lovely people that came to see you speak, and they're on their journeys, and I'm sure they have some questions for you. So, who's got the mic? You have the mic there, my friend? Brilliant. So if you raise your arms, and we'll try to get as many questions as we can. So if you put your hands up, the mic will come to you, and Swamiji will attempt, and I'm sure, answer your questions with enthusiasm. So who's first? No? Oh, there's one here. I thought I did a good job then, Swamiji. I thought I covered everything, but there's one lady there. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much for such an inspiring speech and talk. I just have a question regarding sort of legal protection within the UK and internationally as well. I just wondered how you personally feel the law is providing women protection, and if you feel that it is adequate, and if not,
speak more louder?
Sorry, and if not, did you hear the first part?
I didn't hear.
No worries. I'll repeat it. That's okay.
My ears are 65 years old.
I do apologise. Just thinking about legal protection in the UK and internationally as well. I'm concerned with the law and the legal system. Do you think that the law within this country and internationally as well is providing enough or adequate protection to women around the world? And if not, what do you think that the law and policymakers, for example, can do to widen their understanding of that? Thank you very much.
Thank you for that question.
The first requirement, I believe, is to focus our attention on this problem. Because unless we really focus and put energy into it, it becomes like a formality. There's no real purpose to a law unless we really understand the necessity of protecting it. And I think it's really important that the governments of the world, the policies that they make and the laws that they make are really centered on helping people, on addressing the problem. And Sharan is a wonderful organization. It's a family that's really trying to do something that governments are really responsible for making sure are being done. And if a government cannot enforce it properly themselves, then to help to empower such organizations as Sharan would be a great step forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Just at the front here, who's... Okay, I'll come down. It's okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Princess. Here you go.
Thank you very much. What do you see as the role of mindfulness and meditation in helping us connect with our true self so that we're better able to see the need and express this love and compassion naturally?
Thank you very much for that question. That's my whole purpose, is to do what you say. In order for compassion to be genuine, deep, in order for us to have that integrity, even when there's temptations that we can get so much more if we compromise, or fear that we may lose so much if we don't compromise, integrity means we have a foundation. Whatever storms of temptations and fears come, I have principles. And that takes an inner integrity, an inner connection. Meditation, prayer, in our tradition we chant God's name, especially this Hare Krishna mantra. It's for the purpose of reconnecting to our own hearts, to our own souls, ultimately reconnecting to God's grace. You see, in this world there are so many energies going on. Just like when I was a little boy, there was 4 television stations. You'd have to get up from your bed and turn the channel and then adjust the antenna. Today it's 100 channels, like. And how does it work? I'm just a simple Swami with 1 semester of junior college that I took. But it's fascinating. How is it you just press a button and there's, the news of what's happening in Syria, and there's a football game in Brazil, and there's a soap opera. People are, husband and wife are arguing.
Welcome to my life.
There's a little cartoon with, some little animal beating up another animal. How is it that you just get this whole different sound just by pressing a button? That means all the frequencies of all these different channels are in the air. You don't have, it's not, you call on the phone, I want to see this particular show, and they say, well, in 15 minutes we'll send it to you. It's there. And cell phones, my God. I remember when cell phones just came out, I called my father's home number from India. And I talked to him for like 10 minutes. And then at the end of the conversation, he said, "Do you know where I am?" I said, "You're home, aren't you?" He said, "No." He said, "I'm sitting on a toilet in the 9th hole clubhouse of a golf course." So how does that happen? So there's so many frequencies and so many energies everywhere. And we are all like little antennas. We're absorbing and we're transmitting according to what we tune into. There's the accumulated greed and envy and anger and selfishness and goodness and kindness. It's everywhere. What are we going to tune into? We're going to access that, and then we're going to be able to transmit that from a spiritual perspective. Grace. God's grace. It's universal. It's beyond sectarian conceptions. It's the essence of all true faiths, is to tune into God's grace, which is compassion, equal-mindedness, love for life and for the living. And our meditation, our prayer, our chanting God's names helps us tune into that grace. And once we tune in and we connect, then we can become transmitters of that grace. Through our actions, through our words, through how we use our wealth, to earn with integrity, to spend with compassion. Whatever skills we have, we become instruments of God's grace. And that is why it is so very, very important to have that spiritual connection in our lives and to take the time it takes every day to make that connection and to be with people like today that help to inspire us to keep that connection and that focus, to be the changes we want to see in the world. Thank you.
Does that answer your question? Any more questions out there? Right at the front here, and now we've got a couple of people warming up. Brilliant. Okay, so we'll get through. I'll come to you first. Here you go. Thank you very much. Here you go, Princess.
Hello, you talked about karma, or what we say, what goes around comes around. And I wanted to know how that sits with this whole concept of forgiveness, because if you say, oh, this person has hurt me and they'll get what they deserve in another life, surely that's kind of doesn't sit very well with forgiveness.
Are you asking how we can forgive, or?
Yeah, I guess it's a philosophical question, really. I felt there was a contradiction between the concept of karma and kind of not wishing any ill on others and sort of expecting that something may happen to somebody who's hurt you because they will get what they deserve. And there seemed to be a conflict there, so I just wanted you to comment on that.
I'll try.
Thank you.
As you so eloquently, philosophically quoted, what goes around comes around. That's the law of nature. Just like there's the law of gravity. Whether I believe it or not, what goes up must come down. That's the law of nature. And similarly, whatever we speak, whatever we do, there will be a corresponding reaction. If we do good for others, goodness will come to us. If we cause harm to others, harm is going to come to us. Eventually. Maybe immediately, maybe later. A seed doesn't always sprout immediately. Some seeds take a while, but it will come. When we actually, truly seek forgiveness from our hearts, and we actually really reform to change our ways, and we take shelter of the higher power of God's grace, then we can be forgiven. For a person who has been abused, I would say, first of all, by whatever power we have to get out of that abusive situation. And once we're out of that abusive situation, we can pray that that person be forgiven. It's healthy for us to hold grudges, even when they're justifiable, is not healthy for us. First thing is to try to somehow or other either resolve the abusive situation, adjust so it's not there anymore, or remove yourself from it. But then, as they say, we should hate the disease. We shouldn't hate the diseased. Or to hate the sin, not the sinner. We should pray for them. And I've seen in many situations where the power of that forgiveness can actually transform people's lives. Does that answer your question?
Thanks.
Who had their hands up? Just over there. Okay. I'll come to you first, and then I'll come to you at the end. All right, Princess. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My question is this: spiritual life is very important for me, and as you said, spiritual.
Can you put the microphone close?
Oh yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your talk and for being you. Spiritual life is very important for me in my life, and as you express that we need to be the best transmitters we can be and look after our, I would call, vibrational hygiene. What your message would be, for example, my child, my daughter doesn't believe in God. What your message would be, and I know many of your friends, teenage friends, have the same opinion. So I would like her to do, of course she tries to be good because it's something I tell her, but it doesn't come necessarily from that spiritual desire. What your message would be? I suppose it's a question, first of all, personally for me is important, but maybe I know many friends who, for example, on a spiritual path, but their partners are not sharing the same, they don't disconnect it from that spiritual. So what would be your, what shall I tell you, what would be your message? Thank you.
I think that's a very good question, because it is a dilemma that most people find when they're on a path and they find enlightenment, but their partner hasn't reached there or their children have come off it. How do we sort of nudge them to join the party?
Well, on a personal level, I became a ascetic and a yogi and a swami, and my parents couldn't figure out what I was doing. But we're best of friends. And maybe it's because I caused so much pain to them that I never got married and had children.
Okay, so karma came round.
But they're very happy now.
Good.
And I think what's important is we cannot demand respect, but we can, as far as possible, try to command respect. We cannot force people to have faith, but through our own life, through our own activities, the more we're connected to that spiritual love within us, the more we have that connection, and the more we actually act as instruments of that love, of that compassion, of that goodness, then our example will certainly have a very, very significant impact on the hearts of those that we're close to. It may not transform them the way we expect it to, but we don't have to expect. We just know that we're giving. If we're giving that love of God that we find within ourselves, that in itself is something very divine. And we should know that they are receiving it. And that will nourish them. And they may respond to that love in their own way. But it's always good. We cannot control, but we could live an exemplary life of love, of compassion, of values that can inspire. I remember my mother. When I was just a little boy, it was her birthday. And somehow or other, it's just a reality of this world in most cases that men, I'm a man, as far as sex goes, as far as souls, we're beyond all these things. We always forget these little things. So my father, every year he would forget my mother's birthday. And for my mother, if it was their anniversary or birthday, it was the expression of his love for her that he remembered. But as far as he was concerned, I love her. Why do I have to show it like this? So one time, I found out just at the end of the day, and I ran in the backyard, and she had a rose garden with 5 roses. And I broke the rose off the bush. I stole it from her. I stole the rose from her, and I came and gave it to her for her birthday. What she did, she took that rose as if it were more valuable than a diamond necklace. And she put it to her head, and she put it to her heart, and she smelled it, and she cried and said, "Thank you very much." It's not the thing that counts, it's the thought that counts. In other words, it's not the object that brings pleasure to the heart. It's the love in which it's given. Only love can touch the heart. Things can give some satisfaction to the mind and senses, but only to love and be loved gives pleasure to the heart. And she accepted that little rose was an offering of my love, and she was the happiest person, even though I stole it from her. Now, little did she know, and little did I know then, because when she did that, I was a little moved, but mostly I was just relieved that she wouldn't be upset that I forgot her. But you want to know something? The rest of my life, years later, I took to a spiritual path, and I'm trying to follow this path of bhakti or devotion and love and seva or service. And I understood that little gesture of hers is the very motto of my life. So little things that we do, if they're genuine, can really affect people. And that effect never goes away. I hope that answers your question.
Brilliant.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Just a bit louder.
Thank you very much. There's a question that I've chew often, and I don't seem to get on very well with an answer. Prayer, meditation, loving our neighbor as ourselves, these are not new radical thinking. These are old. So why is humanity not further along in loving its neighbor as itself?
One time, my guru, Srila Prabhupada, he was in, I believe it was New York City. When he was 70 years old in 1965, he left a holy place in India, Vrindavan, to give this universal message of divine love to the world. And he was challenged by a journalist. Why have you come to our country? We have our own religions. We don't need anything else. Why have you come? His answer, he spoke it with great humility and kindness, but conviction. He said, I have not come to convert you. I've simply come to remind you of what you have forgotten. Yes, these essential truths that we're talking about have been in the world forever. And it's our true inheritance. It's what is truly what is within ourselves. It's the nature of the soul. Savai pung sang paro dharmo yato bhaktir hokshaje hoitaki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. The Bhagavad Purana tells the supreme dharma, that means the supreme religion, the supreme occupation, the supreme moral principle. Dharma means all these things. Is to love the source of everyone, that one God, and to serve without selfishness, without motivations based on selfishness or egoism, and without being interrupted by circumstances. And how we actually treat each other on the basis of that love. That is the essence of all true religions. That's the essence of humanity. It's always been. Just a few weeks ago, I was in Varanasi, and I was sitting on the bank of the river Ganges. And I was thinking, at the source of the Ganges, the water is crystal pure and clear. But by the time it gets to Varanasi, there's thousands of tons of sewage and industrial poisonous waste poured into it. Yes? And I was seeing people bathe. And I was kind of worried about them. Now, the Ganges is always pure. But what we mix into it gives a whole different experience. So these truths are pure at the source. But so much of our greed and our envy and our insecurities and our obsessive need to prove ourselves better than others, this is all due to a very empty, superficial state of consciousness where there's no real fulfillment. If we have a fulfilled heart, we don't have to prove anything to anyone. We want to share. The evolution of humanity is from that obsessive need to get the joy of giving. That's wealth. That's true wealth. And that's who we are. But unfortunately, there's been so much sewage and industrial waste poured into our individual and collective minds. We simply have to remember what we've forgotten, what's really valuable, what's really precious. There's a saying, you can tell how rich you are by counting how many things you have that money cannot buy. Peace, compassion, love, that's wealth. If we don't have inner wealth, then no matter what we have outside of ourselves, can never give us any satisfaction and can never really give the right message to our children or the world. We've forgotten that. And it's happening so much in the world today. But still, individually, when we try to make that connection, to try to connect to a higher power and try to share it with others, we can make a difference. The redwood tree is the tallest tree in the planet and the biggest tree in the planet. And I was in a redwood forest not long ago, and the forest ranger was saying to a group of tourists, I'm going to explain to you the underground secret of the redwood forest. And being a teenager from the 1960s, I'm still very inclined toward underground secrets. Mm-hmm. So I listened. And this forest ranger told, in this little forest in Northern California, the soil is very loose and it's hilly. And some of these trees are over 1,000 years old. Many are centuries years old. They have encountered numerous devastating earthquakes, harsh blizzards and windstorms, and their roots don't even grow deep. How do they keep growing? Underground, the roots of the redwood trees, they actually grow outward, looking for the roots of other trees. And as soon as two roots meet, they wrap around each other, they embrace, and create a permanent bond. Practically every root is connected to the root of another tree. And every tree in the forest is directly or indirectly embraced and sustained by every other tree. Unity is their strength. By their own natural wisdom, they know that to survive, they have to care for each other. And even the little tiny redwood tree with thin roots is wrapped around the giant roots of the ancient trees. They're all supporting each other. In giving, we receive. These lessons are all around us. We simply have to be aware and remember what we're really here for. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
We have one more question? Yeah? We have one more question. So if anyone got a question, raise your hands now. One more question. You've got two. So I'm going to go to you, Princess, because you were faster on the draw. Sorry.
Oops.
Thank you, Swami. For a change, I feel so humbled, so little and so touched and moved in your presence. I've waited for years and years and years to be in your presence and company. I have a very big ego. I'm always out and about, enjoying myself. I've tried lots of meditation, chanting. I go to the biggest sanghas in London. I associate with a lot of devotees. But I find wherever I go, I keep bumping into things where I can't fully calm down and connect with myself. So besides chanting, association with devotees, I don't know what else to do. Can you please guide me?
That's a very good question. My little nephew has the same problem. He stopped sugar. I'm just saying, maybe sugar. I don't know. But some of you might have a more deeper solution for this.
Sunny,
yeah,
I'm drinking water, not sugar.
No sugar. See, you're one step ahead, so it must be spiritual. Go for it.
Thank you very much.
Actually, I like your answer. Thank you.
No, I'm not making a joke. I'm honestly, seriously, my nephew did have that same problem. I'm not even joking. But no, you're right. There is that. How do you focus?
Sorry, can I have? Yeah. Swami, this is the other thing. No one takes me seriously. I have serious issues, questions. I want to make a huge, big difference in the world. But look, people make a joke of it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Okay, no, I mean, I'm not upset or offended at all.
Thank God, because my wife thinks I make a joke of her.
No.
And she's not here to prove me wrong.
No, but please help. Please, Swami. Thank you.
Let's go back to the story of Sindhutai. She discovered that she could be transformed by giving to others what she really wanted. Do unto others as you would wish them to do to you, and especially on a spiritual platform. The more we share, the more we actually are enriched. We have to have something to share, so our spiritual practice is very important. And whether we really feel that it's making a difference to us or not, we try to actually seva. Seva means to serve without selfishness, to make a difference in other people's lives. Through our spiritual practice and through our seva, through our service. In one sense, we don't have to be thinking about me, how I feel, and what I am, but how others feel. Paradukkha dukkhi. The happiness of another is my happiness. The suffering of another is my suffering. When we try to live by this principle according to our capacity, whether it's big or small, that's a detail. If we can help one person or if we can help 100 million people, that's a detail. But that we're trying to make a difference for a mother, for our children, and for whoever else, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, to try to make a difference in their lives. And that's where we're going to find our own transformation as well. And of course, we shouldn't eat too much sugar. But that doesn't apply to you then.
I would like to say thank you so much, Swamiji, for taking time out and speaking to us today. Please, ladies and gentlemen, Swami Radhanath. I also like to say thank you to Lady Levy, she's left. She had left, but I'd like to say thank you to her as well, and also the Sharan Project for putting this together, and Polly as well. I mean, like we start, thank you. From a comedy night to the Houses of Parliament, to now we're doing this amazing night here at Asia House. So I want to say thank you to Asia House for hosting us tonight as well. So thank you very much. And the volunteers as well, for everyone who's put this night together, and the unsung heroes sometimes that don't always get, recognition. So thank you, and you, and I think there's a couple of other people I want to point out, but they're not here. And you as well at the back. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you. And also, I want to also thank you guys for coming out and taking time out to spend with us as well. But as always, we have to just raise awareness again that the Sharan Project is run on donations, and we do require some help from you and some giving if you could. Now, there are forms that you can register and donate towards the charity, and this is for the phone lines that we can have help running, so that we can keep giving help as we have been doing since the Sharan Project has started. Me and my wife are very big supporters of the Sharan Project because we are all affected in some way, shape or form by domestic violence or by someone who's had a story, and we by far think that give a voice to the voiceless is what we're trying to do here at the Sharan Project, and also giving and then obviously receiving is one and the same for us. So thank you so much. Have a lovely evening. Swamiji, thank you again. It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunny.
Thank you, sir.
For being so sweet.
Oh, thank you. My mum thinks so anyway. Hey.
And special gratitude to Polly and to Preeti and the whole team of Sharan. We deeply appreciate. It's really a service that comes from the heart, helping the helpless, and these people really care. And because they really deeply care, they could really make a difference. We're all very honored to be a part of. Thank you.